Thank you for attending today's Parker Dewey webinar. So our main goal is to provide additional opportunities for students and employers to connect. So following the 2023 merger from the College of Technology, the College of Engineering, and the College of Technology, so our student body and academic programs have grown significantly. There used to be 5,000 or so in technology, and then 5,000 or so in the Cullen College of Engineering. So now we're 10,000 students and representing approximately 22 programs, majors in undergrad, and 25 in the graduate programs. So Parker Dewey offers flexible options for students that may have restricted schedules or limited accessibility or just unique challenges. It's a simple and effective way for students to apply for short-term project-based internships and for employers to quickly engage in a diverse pool of talented candidates. So now I'm going to hand it over to CEO of Parker Dewey, Jeffrey Moss, so he can tell you a little bit more about the platform.
Thanks so much, Cynthia. I don't
Mhm.
think I need to be here. You did a better job than I did giving the overview. I love this. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeffrey. Just a couple of very, very quick housekeeping notes before I dig into it. First, we are recording this presentation. We will be sending an email afterwards with the recording and the slides. Second, if you have questions along the way, feel free to use the chat. I'll try to answer them as we go through. The beauty of my ADD is I can keep an eye on the chat and usually do a reasonable job. But if not, we'll certainly spend some time afterwards, leave some time for Q&A. I'm going to try to whip through this pretty quickly so we have plenty of time. But again, please feel free to use the chat to ask questions. We'll also share contact info, etc. So today we're going to hit a few things. First of all, we'll give a quick overview. We'll talk about what is a micro-internship, again, that Cynthia talked about. We'll then talk about some actionable strategies that you can apply, including right now, right when we're in the thick of things with campus recruiting. And then, as I said, we'll leave time for Q&A. Real quickly as background, Parker Dewey is not some newfangled thing. We've been around about a decade. We work with students from over 5,000 post-secondary institutions, including obviously Houston and the College of Engineering. And we're a platform that helps companies engage, assess, and ultimately hire individuals for summer internships and full-time roles. So when Cynthia talked about these project-based experiences, these are not a replacement for summer internships. They're not a replacement for co-ops or capstones or full-time hires or any of that other wonderful stuff that you're doing. Micro-internships are a complement. They are a tool that you can use much the way you do going to the career fair, hosting info sessions, doing interviews or phone screens as a way to engage and assess individuals. So again, we'll dig more into that. The challenge is, again, not going to spend a lot of time on this. For anyone involved in campus recruiting, if we were together, I'm sure I'd see a lot of head nodding, that the recruiting process that we've been using for the past several decades isn't working. Students feel like it's not working because they're not able to effectively demonstrate their skills. It's not supporting the career exploration. We're seeing massive turnover. I've seen numbers all around that 50% level. We know for employers, the cost per hire continues to increase. The NACE average is over $6,000, and we know companies are spending, in a lot of cases, a lot more than that. On top of it, again, the time, the effort required, coupled with the turn, it's really, really difficult. It's difficult to cut through the noise, to engage those students, to sort of introduce your brand. It's difficult to determine who is the right fit. It's difficult to determine sort of if there's that mutual, for lack of a better term, love connection. And the cost of getting it wrong is high.
Mhm.
So we'll show you the future. Imagine if before you set foot on campus at Houston, you already had candidates engaged, not just single click of a button raising their hand saying, yeah, I'm happy to show up to an event, but actually engaged, actually excited to come meet you at your info session and having spent the time learning about your organization and showing who they are. Imagine being at the career fair or the info session, able to have meaningful discussions with the students, not the normal, here's my resume, and tell me about your entry level roles or sharing info they could find from the website, but actually talking about what real experiences look like at your organization. Being able to keep candidates warm after those visits, not just the juniors and seniors who you're trying to keep warm before sort of you're on campus formally interviewing, but even those first and second year students who are still in that exploratory phase, the ones who you can actually have the most influence on, who are going to be those future interns and full-time hires. Imagine if you could have insights on their interest, but also their skills earlier in the process, before you set the interview schedule, before you schedule time and reschedule again, doing phone screens. Imagine if you could reach those Houston students, even if you can't be on campus. Students who, again, are excited about your organization, but might be from other parts of the country and want to return home. And again, you might not be able to be there. Or it could be students who are participating in other activities, student athletes, those who might have part-time jobs or family connections. You're able to reach and engage them. Everything we just described is possible. We call this experiential recruiting. It's really the intersection of employer branding and skills-based hiring. And again, we talk about employer branding. It's not about handing out t-shirts or sort of other swag. It's about students accurately understanding who you are. It's knowing that everyone knows Nike, but they don't necessarily realize that Nike's hiring for data analytics or HR or IT or AI roles. Or maybe it's a company that doesn't have the brand recognition, whether it's a Fortune 500 or a smaller organization. It's getting interest from students in that organization. It's reaching students that are aligned to your hiring goals. But it's also about skills-based hiring. I know it's been a hot topic for years. Skills-based hiring is about getting insights on an individual's skills and the alignment to the full-time roles of the summer internships for which you're hiring in a way that goes beyond what's someone's GPA or what's their major. It also is about making sure there's that mutual fit. Back to that 50% first year turnover. It's not only about you assessing if they have the right skills for the role, but them determining if your organization's the right fit and doing it before the time is invested. This is all possible through micro-internships. Now, again, if we were together, I'd ask by a show of hands who have heard of micro-internships, but since we're not, I'll give you 30 seconds. And again, we'll share this slide afterwards, so no need to take copious notes, but I'll give you the high level. Micro-internships, think about them like going on a date, where summer internship is like getting engaged, the full-time role is getting married. Micro-internships are job dates. They are 10, 15, 20-hour projects that students or recent grads complete independently. They're not projects that require you to share sensitive data or really any data. They're not projects that require you to give access to your systems or onboard or train or any of those other things. Those are all great as part of summer internships, sort of as that way to do that deeper dive, that again, that engagement. Micro internships are discrete projects that align to your entry level roles and allow you to see the skills of a candidate and also drive interest upfront to mutually determine if this is someone we want to push forward with. Again, they are like test drives or auditions on both sides. They are professional assignments. Again, it's not fetch copy or make copies. They're projects that are very similar to what they would be doing in their summer internship or full-time role, but again, don't require onboarding. It's sort of tough to think about what they would look like sort of from this. So let's go through some very specific examples. One of the things we do at Parker Dewey, and I think, again, Cynthia and Janice, I don't want to speak for you, one of the reasons I believe colleges love partnering with us is we do this for companies where they will send us a job description for an entry-level role or summer internship, like this production operator role. We unbundle it into a micro internship that, again, is something a student can work on without you giving them access to a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, without in the healthcare setting them needing to engage with a patient or engage with a student education setting, without access to a core code base, but still let you see their skill. Again, this example here for production operator, They're working with, again, multi-million dollar pieces of equipment. A project example might be a training manual development. It's not because this company necessarily needs a new training manual, but by allowing a student to work on the project to create the manual, they're assessing skills. How well does the student understand the piece of equipment? But also things like communication or organization or critical thinking, that when they're putting together that manual, does it demonstrate sort of strong communication, that there's no typos? Can they understand and communicate effectively? Are they turning it on time? So again, these projects very much tease out those things. And it's something we do for organizations all the time. Systems engineer. Again, you're not going to let a micro intern work on your core code base, but you can have them do UX testing where they're able to showcase both their technical chops, but also things like, again, attention to detail or researching AI trends in your industry. It could be something like entry level data marketing. Again, a summer internship that you're hiring for. Let's have a student do a competitive analysis. I love this actually with engineering students. We see a lot of engineering students who realize they might not want to be in the laboratory, might not want to be sort of working on sort of the big mechanical technologies. So let's see how they do applying those skills in other areas. I also get excited, back to the skills-based hiring, is the assessment is built into the process. Every step of the way, employers are getting insights into these students. When they apply for your project, you're seeing, are they a self-starter? Do they have attention to detail? Are they showing genuine interest in your organization? Then you're selecting students to work along the way. Are they asking thoughtful questions? Are they taking feedback? Are they turning things in on time? And then from the final work product, you could look at a one-page sort of training simulation or a one-page sort of market research and pretty quickly tease out, how are their problem-solving skills? Are they showing intellectual curiosity? And to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you use this and decide, gosh, Janice did a great job, let's just hire her for the full-time role. But it's a way to tease these things out earlier and get the most out of your interviews and the most out of what you're already doing. Now, the question always becomes, why do students do it? It's obvious that it helps employers. Students are doing this because it's how they want to be recruited. This is what students are telling us. 95% of students have said these short-term projects are how they want to learn about companies, how they want to show the skills, how they want to be recruited. In fact, one of the rules for Parker Dewey is we don't allow colleges or universities to require students to participate. Every one of the millions of students on the platform and the thousands from Houston are there because they want to be. They've raised their hand and said, this is how I want to learn about organizations. And whether it's at the top of funnel, when they're, again, when you're trying to just assess them and get them interested, whether it's deeper in the funnel when you're trying to tease out the skills, or whether it's about building those relationships that drive them to convert and start, this plugs right in every step of the way. So I'm going to take a breath. Don't see any questions in the chat. What we're going to do is we'll now go through 5 very, very quick case studies on how companies are using these as part of their campus recruiting process. And again, I'm going to whiz through these. We'll share the slides so you have them afterwards. But again, please don't be bashful. Janice and Cynthia, before I get into this part, anything I missed or things you want to add?
Nope. Good.
Let me take a sip of my coffee. Perfect. So the first example is a global manufacturing company that was trying to engage candidates before the recruiting season. They wanted a pipeline that was ready to go. They were sick of being on, call it the treadmill or hamster wheel. They also realized that they didn't have the brand recognition, even though they were a Fortune 500 manufacturing company. They weren't as well known to the average student as a Nike or an Amazon or a Microsoft. They were also trying to figure out how to get rid of administrative burdens. One of the things they did was they used these micro-internships to engage students tied to very specific clubs. Clubs where, again, it may not have been as obvious that this company was hiring. Again, think manufacturing company, maybe weren't, the IT club wasn't thinking about them, or some of the engineering clubs. What they were also doing is they were using it tied to student ambassadors. Um, and they were using this to, again, engage them. We'll talk more about student ambassadors in a minute, but really building and deepening those relationships. They drove those student ambassadors to, again, promote the organization on campus. But unlike traditional student ambassador programs, the micro-internship was used to actually bring those ambassadors in. The outcome was they had thousands of engaged candidates before setting foot on campus with no administrative burden. And again, these weren't candidates who just clicked a button and applied. These were candidates where they could see how many micro internships they applied to at the company, candidates who had completed these projects, and they were able to see actual feedback on how students did. So again, imagine before you set foot on campus at Houston, or before you're scheduling those interviews, having this candidate pool ready to go. The second example is a company, is a medical device company, and this is actually very, very relevant for mechanical engineering, actually, that was worried about missing candidates. They were very interested in student athletes, in particular, doing medical devices. They were very interested in recruiting for certain geographies where they had offices. But one of the things they were also very focused on was finding students who were studying mechanical engineering who realized, to my earlier comment, they don't necessarily want to be in the lab. That's not what they want to do. They appreciate and understand medical devices, but they didn't realize there might be roles tied to sales where they could still put their knowledge of engineering, mechanical engineering, to work, but in a way that was outside the laboratory. So this medical device company very intentionally focused on recruiting students, again, using these micro internships to find mechanical engineering students that had ties to their geographic areas. And what they did is they gave a business development project. We want you to find 5 organizations that you think could be good prospects. And no, they weren't calling or actually selling them. That would be, again, not something you want to give a micro intern, but they were doing the research. Put together a 1-page summary on each of those organizations, why you think our products would fit, how they would align, competitive differentiation, et cetera, all stuff a student can do. And it was less about getting it right. They were more interested in understanding how the student approached the project, and were they thinking about and demonstrating those skills that were vital to be business development. They ultimately reached students from over 1,000 schools. They successfully filled all of the open business development roles they had. And one of the things I get excited about is they had 100% first year retention, including this student whose LinkedIn post is on the right, who got an Employee of the Year award. Again, this is all embedded into the process. And the hiring managers loved it, because instead of just looking at resumes and doing the interviews, they were able to actually see these work product and talk about it along the way. And they had confidence that once they brought someone in and trained them, they weren't going to leave in 3 months realizing it's the wrong fit. The third example was a national fitness chain. Again, their challenge is they had a very well-known brand. Anyone that goes to Orange Theory or has a friend, or in my case, a spouse that does, knows people like are ravenous about or strong advocates for Orange Theory. They realized it was difficult to get applicants for their professional roles. People would see Orange Theory on campus and assume it was being at one of their gyms as a trainer or front desk. They didn't realize the breadth of corporate roles. They were also getting last minute requests. Again, I'm sure I'd see the head nods if we were together about those hiring managers that show up in April or May saying, hey, I need an intern or a new hire. They used projects that were always coming up as a way to engage and assess. Again, an example they had was they were hiring for an HR role. The micro internship they gave was, we want you to create best practices for new hire onboarding. Again, it was a real project that actually needed to get done. They picked 2 different students to do it. One of the students was a 3.9 HR major from a very prestigious school. The other had a lower GPA and wasn't an HR major, but there was something about her short answer that stood out. Looking at the work samples on the left, I'm sure you can guess where I'm going. The student on the top had good info. She was the 3.9 HR major, but from that one-page work sample, you could see the communication's not as there, and there's a couple of typos. The student who they were on the fence with kicked butt. And in fact, the hiring manager said, she actually is now there as a full-time employee. The hiring manager said, this is someone I probably wouldn't have even interviewed had HR just given me her resume. But from looking at this work, I could immediately tell she had what we were looking for. And then again, in the interview, they talked about that. The last example I'll give is really relevant here. It's about deepening relationships with existing campus partners like Houston. This is a company, it was a leading hospital system that was really focused on getting students engaged earlier in the process, getting to know those first and second year students, and also driving a little bit of interest within healthcare, not just for the healthcare roles or allied tech, but even those supporting roles. So one of the things they did, again, was when they were going to campus, they were offering micro-internships exclusively to students at that school. Again, in this case, it was a different college, but just sharing it as an example that before HCA set foot at FAMU, they already were able to see they had a pool of candidates who had raised their hand, not just clicked a button, but actually took the time to answer questions, etc. They could see actual feedback. They could see actual levels of interest all at their fingertip. I actually had one more quick example. It's about data. With early career hiring under attack across organizations, again, another Fortune 500 HR team was focused on continuing to prove the efficacy of its program to managers. Same thing. Here was the data they had at their fingertips. Data showing the students engaged to some difficult to fill locations, including Houston, but also places like Texarkana or Cuyahoga, New York. They were able to get candidates with ties to those connections. They were able to show their cost per hire. They were able to show things tied to gender equity, which was very, very top of mind. The senior managers, senior executives of this company loved it. In fact, one of the people leading the program at this organization was actually called into the CEO's desk office for the quarterly investor call to talk about the impact of some of this stuff. It was pretty cool. It works for employers because it's effective. It's a single place to reach students from over 5,000 colleges and universities. I'm proud of the fact that students come from all different backgrounds. And when we talk about historically underrepresented, we're not just talking about racial or ethnic, we're also talking about folks like first gen, Pell eligible, veterans, etc. We're seeing incredible success. Again, micro interns are exceeding expectations. And when they take a full-time role, they don't leave. North of 98% of micro interns stay in that full-time role at least a year after graduation. It also is showing material cost savings, typically 40 to 80%. It's a pretty big range because every company has different costs, but we're happy to work with you. And what you get by participating is all of this stuff. Strong employer brand, time savings, improved conversion, lower cost, data at your fingertips. So how do you get started? Well, here's again, 5 ideas for you. Before you're visiting campus, you can use the projects. How to keep kids warm who you're meeting when you're on campus, after you're there. Again, great way to keep the students engaged, getting insights on their skills earlier in the process. And again, if you can't visit Houston this year for whatever reason, it's a great way to still reach, engage, and build those relationships with the students. With that, I'm going to take a breath, see if there's any questions or comments. Cynthia, Janice, anything I missed?
No, not that I can think of. I do have one question. Is there any kind of like project support? Like if the student has questions. So,
Oh, yes. So we have an entire client success team. And the client success team is there both for the employers and also for the students. So on the student side, to be very clear, one of the things we often do is nudge the students to leverage the resources that they already have. The resources Cynthia, you, and Janice in the school are providing. So again, we give them some best practices when they start, and we're there for sort of the very technical questions. Again, we're telling them this isn't the classroom. 90 or 95% is not an A. You need 100% success. That's what clients expect. Telling them to take this seriously, but we're also encouraging them to go to their faculty members, go to office hours and ask for feedback, reach out to alum. They love providing the support. It's a lot more interesting than talking about the football team or basketball team or what's your favorite, whatever on campus. We see a lot of that where students are reaching out to alums and saying, hey, I'm working on this market size analysis, Cynthia. Can I pick your brain on my approach? So again, we're trying to encourage the students to use all of these great resources the schools are providing. We also provide support to the employers. Again, they tend to be more tactical questions on that first project, like, was it really this easy? Or I posted to pick one student, there's three who are amazing. How can I pick their? No problem. Again, the team is here. One of the other things we do, and I alluded to it before, is for companies or organizations that aren't sure, just email us a job description, whether it's a link to your website or a PDF or whatever. We have an entire team that maps those things out to projects that are specifically designed not to require a heavy lift. Again, you don't have to share data. You don't give access to systems. They're designed so students can be successful, but you can also get insights on their skills and showcase your organization. I'm long-winded. Sorry for the long answer. I did see a question in the chat. Do these work as 100% remote? Love the question. Yes. Pre-COVID, about 97, 98% of the micro internships were remote. Post-COVID, it's still there. Now, to be clear, I am a believer in on-site summer internships, on-site full-time roles. Students want on-site summer internships, on-site full-time roles. They recognize it's the best way to sort of learn about organizations, and they recognize the value of skill development and everything else. Micro internships tend to be remote. And it's not because we want to minimize those things, because again, I'm a believer, but it's recognizing that the student who has a full schedule at Houston may not be able to be in the office between 9 and 5, or might be in Houston and you're recruiting for someone that needs to be in Dallas upon graduation, or Memphis, or someone else. This still becomes a valuable way to recruit that student, even again, without them coming in. The other aspect to it is employers have shared it's much easier for them. They don't have to worry about where the student's going to sit. They don't have to worry about security badges. They don't have to, like, all of this becomes easy. So again, think about it much more as a recruiting tool. The same way you might do a virtual info session or an on-site info session, the micro internship is a remote way to start to engage and tease out those skills, ultimately with the goal of it turning into a full-time role or summer internship. One thing I will note, though, is unlike traditional summer internships, there's no quote unquote hard feelings if it doesn't turn into one on either side. Some companies are very intentional that we're using this to recruit individuals for our summer internship program. Others are just posting it and not saying that. And that way, if it doesn't turn into a summer internship, either the organization determines the student wasn't the fit or vice versa, that's okay. One other quick point on this, I love this story. In the very early days of Parker Dewey, I got a call from an employer who told me they made an offer to the student and she did not accept. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Like, I know you're trying, like, why? Like, that's a good thing. We loved her. We thought she was great, but we'd rather she realize it's not a fit earlier in the process. Because if we brought her in either 3, 6, 12 months in, she would have realized it, and we would have spent all this time, money, effort, or she just wouldn't have been happy. Now they're able to determine who is the right one to offer that summer internship for, who is the right one to offer that full-time role, and there's that mutual connection, as opposed to we offer 70% of our summer interns full-time roles and only X%. Again, we're trying to tease this out beforehand. The same way for the 30% you didn't offer summer or full-time roles to, again, let's see if we can tease these things out beforehand. Other questions?
Oh, I just wanted to ask a question. So when the project is sort of, it materializes, right? And it's in the platform, all the applicants apply, the students would apply through the platform,
Yes, everything is
right?
done
And then,
on the
okay.
platform. We, and again, this is not about any school or platform
Yeah.
in particular. One of the things I'm proud about, and I alluded to it before, is we certainly love when folks like Janice and Cynthia and others at Houston let students know it's out there, and certainly
Hmm.
love sharing it. But we want students to have agency. Students come onto the platform, and we hear students do it every day. They will come in to see what new projects came in. And that's pretty unheard of. And again, Janice or Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, like for students to take that kind of agency and ownership of the process. They're doing it because this is how they want to learn. They're only going to info sessions if they've already determined that this is a company I want to work for, or if they're required to. Again, nothing wrong with those things. One of the things I get excited about here is students are saying, this is how I want to learn. Oh, I never thought about working at HCA. I'm not studying medicine, but gosh, they have a cool project tied to market size analysis. Click. Let me apply. Let me answer the question. Or I thought XYZ company was only hiring for tech, or I thought I had to go to San Francisco for tech roles. I didn't realize there's these great companies in Houston that have some of the most innovative tech in the world. I mean, we hear this from JP Morgan, which I know has a huge presence down in Houston. They're doing more interesting things in fintech than all of the fintech startups combined, in their words. But students aren't thinking about it. If you're JP Morgan, this is a great way to help those students realize the breadth. Or again, maybe you're not as well known. Maybe you're a smaller organization. What a great opportunity. Any other questions?
I have one. So, how is the cost determined for the employer?
Sure. We set that up for each employer, and we're happy to do it. Um, Companies pay for each micro internship, of which 90% goes to the student. Parker Dewey retains 10%, and we're very transparent. That covers our direct cost of having the student on our payroll and issuing all of the accounting documents. One of the things we've seen is projects tend to shake out about 20 to 25 bucks an hour implied, but they're fixed fee. So for instance, I as an organization might be hiring for a marketing role. Let's have 5 different students write a blog article. I think it'll take 10 hours. Actually, I'm going to make it 4 to make the math easier. We'll have 4 students do it. I think it'll take about 10 hours. We'll pay each of them 250 bucks. The students see the project. They see it listed at 90% of that. So the students see it listed at 225. If they're interested, they apply. If not, they don't. Company's total cost, again, 4 times 250, 1,000 bucks. Let's have the 4 students do the project. The 4 do it. They're all good. There's one that maybe had a couple of typos. Okay, let's move on. There's 3 left. 3 students. Let's interview them because they were all great. Let's now interview them for summer internships or full-time roles. Maybe one of the students realizes it's not the right fit and okay. Long story short, if it leads to one full-time hire, the total cost to the company was 1,000 bucks, of which again 90% went into the students' pockets. They made a full-time hire. That is, I can't do good enough math, but 1,000 bucks compared to 6,000 plus, according to the NACE average, is a pretty big savings. You put on top of that the fact that our students tend to stick around when they take full-time roles. So that $6,000 NACE average is more like 10, 11, 12 when you consider the turnover. Again, it's pretty cost effective. It also saves those companies massive amounts of time. Again, think how much time is spent going through interviews with all of these people, only realizing it's not the right fit after hours and hours. This teases those things out. And again, we are very, very, very transparent about all of these things. And again, to get very granular again, when companies will send us those job descriptions or anything else, we'll pull together micro internships and we'll have our recommendation around the cost. Again, we've been doing this a long time. We found that sweet spot is typically between 250 and $400 per project. And again, it depends on the length. Is it a 10, 15, 20 hour? But we again scope that out. One thing I will hit on though, Cynthia, to your point, is we believe it's vital that these micro internships are paid and paid fairly. It's not just from a moral perspective, though that's important. We think it leads to better outcomes for the employers as well, that they're not filtering out candidates who can't afford to do unpaid work because they have other obligations. But what it also does is it makes sure they're getting candidates that might be a little bit on the fence. Again, the student who might not have heard of that company and is not willing to invest 5 or 10 or 20 hours doing unpaid work for a company or industry they may not have heard of. But gosh, that same student sees that interesting project for HCA and marketing and says, oh, like I'll try that, especially if I can make a couple $100. They're not doing it because of the money, but the money does allow more of the students to participate, which again provides a very material competitive advantage for the recruiters. I am so long-winded. Sorry again, Cynthia.
That was great.
I am going to, in the chat, put in an email address. We have a dedicated email address for Houston. So for anyone on this webinar, feel free to share. This is an email address that if you have questions, or if you said, you know what, like, here's this job description, show me what you can do. Show me what a project, I think it's really, really complicated. I don't think you can do it for that. Challenge us. Send us that job description. Send us whatever it is. We'll tell you if we can't do it. Again, we've gotten questions where I'm not going to have a micro intern draw blood. So when a company was hiring for phlebotomists, but we did create a project which was tied to best practices around patient interaction because they were finding that was a difficult thing to assess when they were hiring phlebotomists. And they were more interested, great, or where they wanted to showcase their brand to students and differentiate versus all of the other hospital systems hiring phlebotomists. Again, challenge us. Send us your job description. Send us the challenge that you have. And we have an entire team here that is happy to sort of make suggestions. We'll also tell you if we can't do it. There's a few of those things that will come back and say, not really a fit. It's rare, but we'll tell you. I see a question. Can you send a list of universities that you are already at? We have literally schools, I'm sorry, we have students literally from every college and university across the US. 2-year, 4-year. We also have boot camps and other workforce training programs. The reason we have that, Ross, is because we are an open platform. We welcome learners and recent grads from any one of those schools. Now, we have formal partnerships with over 900 colleges and universities, including Houston. And to be blunt, that tends to lead to the best outcomes for the employers and students when folks like Cynthia and Janice are involved. Because what we're able to do is tie those things together. That you're able to be strategic where you're coming to Houston's career fair. Let's collaborate with Cynthia and Janice and you and have a strategy that aligns, whether it's around driving more students to attend the event or how to keep them warm after. So again, we love doing those things. If there's a specific school you have in mind, happy to give you more detail on the relationship with them. But again, it sounds silly, but we are Big Tent. We welcome everyone. And it goes back to that philosophy of any college student or recent grad looking to launch their careers, we welcome them with open arms. Ross, please let me know if that didn't answer your question effectively enough. I want to make sure, again, I'm very transparent about this. Cynthia, thanks for sharing that list. Again, these are the 900 plus. Be blunt, we might be a little bit behind. It's been crazy. But the nice thing is any school that you want to be recruiting at, great. Jennifer, to your question, we will be sending the recording and the slides afterwards. So if you want to listen to me ramble again and again, you're more than welcome to if you need help falling asleep. Anything else? Haha, thank you. My wife says it's not falling asleep. She needs to put in. Never mind. I'm clearly passionate about this stuff.
Hmm.
Again, I started the organization almost a decade ago to really help create more equitable pathways from college to career for all learners, but do it in a way that truly aligns with the goals of employers. And I think that's really key. That while this is helping the Houston students, while it's supporting and aligning to the work Cynthia and Janice and the rest of the team are doing there, it needs to be done in a way that helps the employers, in a way that makes things easier for those focused on campus recruiting. We know you are inundated with emails. We know the pressures that are on you. We know all the noise that's out there, the budget cuts, the headcount cuts, the fact you're being asked to do more with less, hiring managers with last minute requests or complaining about certain interviews you scheduled for them. Everything that we've done is designed to alleviate those pains. It's designed to help you really tease out those interested qualified candidates, not qualified based upon academic pedigree or who their parents are or anything else, but qualified based upon having the right skills and the right interest for what you're looking for. And teasing those individuals out and ultimately leading to better hiring outcomes. And when that works for the employers, the students, the schools, and other stakeholders all benefit as well. So again, rarely are there opportunities to have that kind of a win-win-win for all of the stakeholders. I'm just really proud of the fact that we've been able to do that and truly honored to partner with the team at Houston and Cynthia and Janice and sort of their colleagues on this exciting program. So unless there's any other questions, I will let Cynthia and Janice close us out.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. That was great. I learned so much. So I'm glad everybody will get the slides and just thank you for attending, everyone. Y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, y'all.